Hello. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to Baldor for hosting this party. I wouldn't even say show, it's a party. Really happy to have all of these distinguished panelists here. I'm Zach Young. I think it's best to have them introduce themselves one by one and talk about where they came from and what they're working on. Quick little intro.
Hello, my name is Kelly Nam. I was the former pastry chef and partner at Banjam, which is now kind of on a hiatus.
We'll talk about that later.
And she was Michelin's Pastry Chef of the Year for 2023.
2022, sorry.
Good hype, girl. Well done. I'm Elisa Marshall. I am the founder of Maman. We are a bakery, cafe, event space. Been in the making for 10 years. Now have 34 locations across New York, Toronto, Montreal, DC, and just opened Miami.
I'm Tyler Malek. I'm the head ice cream maker and co-founder at Salt and Straw Ice Cream. So we're based in Portland, Oregon. We've got 40 locations, mostly on the West Coast, and then we're opening 2 here in town, one in West Village and Upper West Side this summer.
My name is Camari Mick. I am the executive pastry chef and partner at Rafts and executive pastry chef at, where is it? Musket Room.
Yeah. Yep, that's where we are today. So the theme of Play With Your Food, I think is fantastic for the overall event, but I think no greater person in the food space plays with their food more than the pastry chef, more than the sweets department. And in 2024, we are in a completely different place. You know, we had our heyday in the early aughts. We kind of went through 2008 recession and experienced, I would say, the great cuts of pastry. Got through the pandemic. A lot of people peeled out of the restaurant industry, and now we've all bounced back. And I think what I love about this panel is we represent so many different facets of pastry, from restaurants to brick and mortar shops to a dessert specialized experience restaurants. And I love that. So I guess my first question is, where are we at in 2024? What is going on with dessert? Is dessert still relevant?
Oh,
and where is the home for it?
I think post-pandemic, or during the pandemic, what happened to the pastry industry was a lot of micro bakeries were being built out of their homes and in ghost kitchens and just being delivered. That's kind of how I got my start. I know Kelly did Jumak Banjan originally with Chef Gio, and I feel like that's where we started to really blossom and started to really kick off, because we were getting even more creative, and it was a time for cooks to shine and really step out into their own and figure out what they wanted to do, especially from cooks coming from fine dining restaurants. It gave them a chance to highlight their own culture in a way that we've never seen before. And I feel like that really started, the pastry revolution, if you will.
Yeah, I think on our end, at Maman specifically, it kind of opened up our eyes for us that our customers are not just within our brick and mortar space. And it really forced us to think of shipping pastries and what pastries can we ship. And we were able to launch an amazing e-commerce cookie business, shipping our cookies nationwide throughout COVID. So it really kind of helped give us that little, shove to open our eyes a little bit more to just, New York City at the time, and allowed us to kind of have fun and be creative and where can we expand our brand through the uses of technology and appeal to a broader audience.
Tyler, you seem to be in a recession-proof industry of ice cream. What changes have you seen over the past few years? Because I feel like I don't want to oversimplify, but ice cream seems like always the good business to be in.
Yeah. I mean, it's also a luxury business, you know? So, and I think in times of recession, it's hard. If people are choosing between a cup of coffee that they like have to get versus ice cream, they're going to choose the coffee. So you definitely find this middle ground. I think for us, we've slowly realized, like, yes, we went through that e-com boom. We're coming out of it. Like, a lot of companies over-invested in e-com. A lot of us realized, like, it was, I don't know, a false lead, or it was a lost lead. We thought it was a lost leader, and it turned out it was just a loss. So I think you're seeing a lot of pivot back to people coming in and wanting that experience. And for us, it's been really tricky because, you know, pre-COVID, I think we did so well at creating this experience. Like, we built Salt and Straw off this idea of like creating almost like this fine dining experience just through ice cream. So giving it that same sense of customer, like service, hospitality. And in COVID, it kind of transferred to like, just give me whatever you can get as quick as possible and don't touch me. And so as an industry, I think we're kind of stuck in this, like, we're trying to shake off this like 4-year, you know, yuck of like trying to figure out how to serve people and how to like bring back that hospitality, but also do it in a world where costs of ingredients, cost of service, are like double what they were in 2019.
So I get this is kind of really for Camari and Kelly, but leading off of that, in the restaurant world, are pastry chefs still relevant? Like, where are we at there, and how have you adapted? How has the industry adapted? And this is, of course, years coming, you know. 10 years ago, I started picking up every pasta, pizza dough, anything I could do for savory to maintain my staff with 8 restaurants. Where are we at now in the restaurant itself?
I think, like, building off of the new pastry fun that we've been doing, like, we see the Supremes, we see the cookie, we see all these fun Instagrammable things that we have to keep up with. And one thing about pastry is that you will always have high labor, but low like profit income, just because, you know, we're not going to be able to charge $50 for a croissant just because it took us 3 days to make it. But the costs to like actually make it, the ingredients are so low. So that's what we, you know, always base that off of. Either way, for pastry having its moment now it's all about eating with your eyes, I feel like. So in order to have that nuanced application in a fine dining restaurant, you need to be hiring the best, essentially. And that's kind of where we come in, where, you know, we are hired for our creativity. We are hired for the way we make things look. And I feel like now there's a lot of savory chefs leaning on us to help not only build their pastry menu, but like refine their savory menu a little bit more, especially at places like Juma, where there's so many pastry applications throughout the whole menu.
Yeah, Kelly.
So
speaking of eating with your eyes,
yeah,
Kelly,
so Juma was opened by 3 pastry chefs. Essentially, that was the 3 partners. So our menu was entirely based on pastry technique, from amuse to desserts, which is an amazing place to work as a pastry chef. But that also opened eyes and skill levels for everybody. So one of the most important things for us was that dessert has to be within the tasting menu. That way we could be sustainable together instead of just being one department, because we're not a department that, like Mari said, is profitable in no means. There probably isn't a single restaurant that makes a ton of money just on desserts if it's not within the tasting menu. So that was one big thing that we had to do for Juma Banjam. And we also used a lot of pastry techniques in our savory cuisine. And my specialty was using savory ingredients in desserts, so our entire menu fit that way. So I feel like the pastry department is no longer just like included in the food side. It's actually a service for restaurants now. It's an extra additional cost and labor that should be separated, not just based on the revenue that we make.
Well, and I do think that therein lies the value, right? Like desserts have frequently been looked at as an amenity, whether it be to make up for service. Like, how many times have you stood at the pass and been like, oh, so you're giving away my stuff because you messed up? Great, happy to make the recovery, but that's affecting my bottom line. I feel like the tables have turned in terms of marketing and the visual value that we bring in this Instagrammable world. I was just saying before, restaurant groups promote the pictures of the dessert more than they do a pork chop.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I mean, I've been doing a lot of promoting for both restaurants and a lot of collaborations because people, as much as I keep hearing like, oh, I don't like sweets. As soon as people come in and actually try it and find that, we're not doing what people used to do in the 80s, like nothing is overly sweet anymore. So I'm able to collab with, savory chefs, and I'm able to collab with people around the world because I feel like it's more adaptable now. There's so many different avenues that we can do with pastry, and we can make them fun, we can make them delicious, and it's just more approachable overall because it's a whole new generation.
Well, speaking of collaboration, I think the two in the center here are experts.
Well, we just did a dinner.
We just
like
did
a month ago. I absolutely. I think it's amazing because, like, you're exactly right. Like, it's so much more fun to talk about the pastry, and yes, it's expensive, but that's what is like flashy. And for us, like, it's got a little bit of that shock appeal. So like, we did 7 courses. Every course had ice cream integrated into it in some way. Like almost all of them were savory ice creams. And I think that's what it drove. Like the tickets sold out, I think, in an hour and a half.
Yeah.
It's amazing because people just fall in love with that idea, and it's something to talk about. To your point, like, it's so fun to be like, oh my God, ice cream. It's got that nostalgia, but it's also got this kind of the future of food built into it.
Yeah, and on our end, collaborations are a huge part of our business, and I think I can really attribute it to a huge part of our success. We have a lot of fun working with a variety of brands, and I think for us, it's really all about audience sharing. It's about creating awareness of our brand to a different audience and vice versa. And our collaborations have quite a wide range, and we honestly get people knocking on our door from on a weekly basis saying like, hey, let's collaborate, whether it be like food providers or cosmetic brands who are just looking to audience share. And I think that that's the really cool thing. And that's a huge trend that I see, and something that really keeps us relevant, keeps us having something new and exciting for our audience. Like, working with a CPG brand like Purely Elizabeth, we just recently did a cookie with them, and we did a granola milk latte with them as well, all the way to L'Oreal, who was launching a new palette of lipsticks, and we did dip-dyed croissants that matched all of the different colors of their new palette that they were launching. So it's really, firstly, for press purposes, for PR-wise, for something new, but then, those Purely Elizabeth diehard fans are now introduced to Maman and vice versa. So finding like-minded brands to work together is something for us that's really important to our brand, and vice versa. I think, for a lot of these smaller emerging brands, especially in the food service industry, which I'm sure a lot of you are, who want to get their product into the mouth of consumers who don't have brick and mortar stores, who don't want to schlep samples at Whole Foods on the weekends. It's a really great kind of authentic and not cheesy way to get the product in the mouths of actual consumers, kind of discreetly, while introducing it to a new audience and showing various uses for it as well.
The one thing I would add, though, what I love about this idea of like genuine partnerships has been eye-opening for me. I feel like 2021 was like the year of like stunt marketing. And that's when I think like ranch flavored chapstick came out. Like that was the peak of the fall for me. And even for us, I think we were in this mode of like every other week we had to have a new stunt and nothing felt genuine. And I think coming out of that, like 2023, 2024, it was our focus was how do we slow down? How do we maybe do one a quarter? But it's like we spent a year and a half planning this partnership with The Rock. It's like, or we spent 6 months planning our dinner with Musket Room, like how do you put more intent and thoughtfulness and make sure, to your point, like it's genuine? Because I think people can see through the glitter nowadays.
Yeah, it also strikes me, as we're talking about these collaborations, right, that not everyone is an ice cream behemoth or like a bakery maven that has access to The Rock. But I think it's also starting small and thinking about, as I'm walking the floor here at the Baldor show and I'm reminded of being at the Union Square Green Market when I was the pastry chef at Butter. And like, that was kind of the OG collab when you were like working with your farmer, putting the farm on the menu. They were growing my blueberries for me. So I think there's also a nugget of kind of starting small as you're growing it, whether it be your coffee company, whether it be a farm, more eyes is more better.
Yeah.
And you got to start somewhere. And then you have The Rock on speed dial, right, Tyler?
I love how you just dropped that casually. I totally agree with that. I often love to collab on my menu, even if it's just a product. For example, I made a jerk ice cream and I used one of my very good friends. She's actually in the audience right now. She makes this her company's Nom, and she makes this jerk sauce where she harvests her own Scotch bonnets. She grows her own Scotch bonnets in her backyard with her parents. And it's actually very fun because they cultivate the bonnet to be just the right amount of flavor, but not as so much heat. So it's not overly spicy. We're both Jamaican, but by the way, if you couldn't tell. And so I love to bring stuff that in and put it on the menu because not only am I highlighting one of my friends, nepotism, but I'm highlighting a Black creator. So, that's not really seen a lot on Michelin rated menus.
I think the cool thing is like, the more you know about the ingredient, like your story of blueberries, like this, like you can also control how you use that ingredient in really unique ways. Like if we're getting a single origin chocolate and I can like learn about how the farmer fermented the beans and like how the roaster, chose a specific roast profile, like I can actually balance out the sugar, the salt, the any spices, like you know it more inherently and you create a genuinely better product.
Yeah, totally agree. Going back to Jamaica, I met a really great chocolate purveyor. I went down, harvested our own cacao. He fermented it for me, and it was like our own very special batch of chocolate. And I feel like it's just like being intentional about the product that you use, sourcing ethically. I think people can notice that, and they see that, and they see the storytelling, and they see the intention behind it. And I think that's where you can start continuing to draw people in just by that ethos and storytelling.
That's so cool. I remember one of the first chocolate makers I ever met, he was, we all learn what grows together goes together. And he was starting to he was like, well, think about that in the origins of your chocolate too. Like, how do you think of this chocolate was from this part of the world? What else is growing with that? What's around there? And slowly you can stitch together flavors that you would never, ever imagine. We were working with an Ecuadorian chocolate in particular and started pulling in passion fruit that was literally grown 100 miles away. And this vanilla bean that they're trying to bring back from this native vanilla bean from Ecuador. And it creates these flavors that I don't think, I would never, passion fruit and chocolate and vanilla is I don't play with that often, but it turned out beautiful.
I think these collaborations are also becoming very genuine because we're both learning, whoever the collaborator and the collaboratee is. Camari and I did a collaboration last year, and we actually switched our cultures So Camari did a Korean desserts, I did Jamaican desserts, and we got to really like learn about each other's cultures, which is a lot of fun. And because we put in so much work understanding that, I think that's how like genuinism like really shows also.
Yeah, it was really fun. You guys missed out.
Round two.
So going back to this, the restaurant model versus the brick and mortar model, I feel like the pandemic really opened the door for a lot of pastry chefs to jump out of the restaurant kitchen and open their own thing, open their own experience. And especially in cities, bigger cities, the dining experience has become more of a treasure hunt, more of a kind of multi-course scenario where it's dinner somewhere and then go for cookies, go for ice cream, go to bake shop. How do you guys feel about the kind of separation of the meal?
I do that often. Sometimes I have 2 dinners. So big bag, I don't care. But I have people coming in for just desserts all the time. And it's a good ego stroker. I'm like, okay, thanks. But 2, it's good to see that people are, coming into that sweet tooth again, that they're really seeking out the experience and what they want and going for desserts. I mean, dessert first is always good in my book.
I think we also, by opening brick and mortar, we have a secret superpower in that we can open commissary kitchens. It's like the dark secret is that we have commissary kitchens, and we can, in that space, we can invest in double racks, ovens. We can invest in things that maybe take some of those extra costs that are inherently part of pastry and kind of like streamline them a little bit. One example is, we were like, we want everything handmade in our ice cream. So that almost got to this point where we had like this team of 12 people standing around hand cutting brownies for 12-hour shift or 10-hour shifts, and people were getting wrist injuries every day. So we ordered this like $150,000 piece of equipment that just cuts things. It's basically it's a cutter. We realized like cutting things is not the handmade part of the ice cream that we cared about. We can replace 12 people with 4. We have significantly less injuries. It's 10 times faster. Win, win, win. But those are some of the things that we're able to kind of invest in by having a few more units, by having this commissary style.
And we felt the same way with the same kind of model of commissary, which really allows us also to work and partner with various restaurants, assisting them with special desserts and so forth. And going back to your point about like leaving restaurants for dinner, I think it's fascinating because when I look at myself, who I'm diehard foodie, we'll eat at one, we'll have appetizers at one place, drinks at another, and then have dinner, and then you go out somewhere for dessert. So I think it's just really like. And I think places like Musket Room are doing a fantastic job, marketing and highlighting the menu, that it's like, we're not just here for dinner. And I think it's a challenge for you guys, one of the biggest, and, to up your average ticket, whether you want to do that or whether you want to, turn tables at some point, but to like encourage people to stay. So I'm fascinated with how, restaurants really kind of like capitalize on that as opposed to like leaving and going to see him somewhere else. So it's I think in more urban dense cities like New York City, it's easier to kind of like hop around. But in other neighborhoods, you want to go and have a great fine dining experience and have your 5-course meal and leave happy. So I think there's, so many different factors that kind of fall within that.
I do think for the restaurant pastry chefs, the table as real estate has always been important, where a lot of owners, et cetera, would rather turn the table, sell more drinks, sell another steak, than a $12 to $16 dessert.
Right.
And
have coffee for 2 hours
Right.
after your meal when you could be, spinning it around. So
But I think like my challenge back in the restaurant group days was always, how do I maximize that? How do we sell a $30 dessert for the table, make them stay, put the whiskeys on the dessert menu, and basically pay for yourself? Because I feel like as pastry chefs, we're always trying to pay for ourselves.
Oh yeah, definitely. That I think that comes in with training your front of house staff, being able to upsell people. I tell them all the time. I'm like, they can add desserts onto their tasting, and like if they want to taste the whole dessert menu, that's another like $60 right there, and then you can sell them on the pairings, the unique pairings that we have currently. For example, for our Omni dessert, it's a tahini cheesecake, a smoked tahini cheesecake. And instead of pairing it with wine, because apparently I don't make desserts for dessert wine, I made them make a mezcal milk punch because it just flowed a little bit better. So that's like, you can upsell that, like it's a natural pairing for that dessert. But like now you just sold them on a $24 cocktail and a $18 dessert. And then even the way our restaurant works is we have a garden as well. Like you can then swing them to the garden if we're worried about table space. So like, would you like to finish your desserts in the garden? Would you like to finish them at the bar? We could keep you here. Stay.
Spend money and eat dessert.
Spend money.
Yeah, we took the easy route of doing tastings, but table turning is still an issue. So we would always offer them, like, would you like to move to the bar to enjoy your desserts? Like, take your time. That way they don't feel pressured. Another way we did a lot of upsell as well, like I did some crazy stuff, to be honest with you. Like I did caviar on ice cream. I did uni on ice cream with truffle rice ice cream. I was like, people make risotto with truffle, like the rice that truffle keeps in. Why not make ice cream out of it and then put uni on it? Who's not going to love that with chilies? So people love that kind of stuff. So they will like stay and add more dessert. I used to do like Sundays only Sundays, and people will come for just that only also. So it's all about like grasping people's attention and making them want to stay, really.
So let's pivot to my least favorite subject, which is trends. My least favorite question to get is like, so what trends do you see in dessert right now? But I think it is important to talk about. And I think instead of trends, let's say innovation, because this is play with your food. And so much innovation in the kitchen has always started in pastry. We were always the ones who started using the cool toys or the toys from the hardware store, right? We had to make do. So where are you guys at in innovation? What are you guys thinking about right now? Like, where's your head at?
I'll start with this one. On our end, it's kind of two different things. And I think we look at two different spectrums. One going anti-trend and just, going back to nostalgia. And Maman, meaning mother in French, it's really our family recipes, home-cooked recipes. And I feel like that is a trend in itself because it's something, or maybe not, but it's something that'll like never die. It's ongoing. And we really have a lot of like really great classic items that will like spark a memory of you being at your grandmother's house, enjoying this, when you were 5 years old growing up. And to me, that's something that we really put emphasis in, whether you call it a trend or not, though it is kind of trendy now. But that's something to me that'll never die and really helps to kind of fuel a lot of longevity in brands. And then on the flip side, fortunately, unfortunately for Instagram, which, for us, Elisa has been a huge player in our success is the fusions of items. We have a lot of fun. We have a very millennial customer. We have a lot of fun kind of like jumping on the bandwagon with those, whether it be like the giant croissant that we have, or right now it's currently like the cookie croissant. You look at the cookie. So it's a lot of like fusions of items. And giving people reasons to come in and try something new. So we have a nice balance in our assortment. Our pastry chef, Jean-Louis, who's here, does an incredible job kind of taking a lot of those like Americanized flavors, like our classic like Oreo cookie, and using, proper pastry techniques and French and, pure, real good ingredients to produce them. So it's a nice balance of, going super trendy and feeding to what people want, what people are going to come in for, and what'll excite them, but then also having that like great balance of core items that will, always be kind of like your true classics that will hopefully spark something special inside.
Yeah, I think that idea of classics, nostalgia, that's where we're leaning to. I mean, that's actually, I've got a book coming out next year, and it's all about just the classic ingredients in ice cream, but also like how to nerd out and really understand like the fine print of these ingredients and make the very best. So for example, we tested, I think, 100 different recipes to make our own pistachio cream to get it just perfect. Like how do you really, really dial it in and understand the ingredient to its like core, so that you can like lean into that and actually make the best of the best.
I think another trend that's going on entirely in the restaurant industry right now is sustainability, which is not really new in the pastry department because, as Zach mentioned, we're always a department that's trying to save the most amount of money. We're the department that's gathering all the mushy strawberries, freezing it, and making a sorbet out of it later. That's not really new for the pastry department, but I see a lot of movement in the zero waste trend these days.
I think I'm also anti-trend. I'm definitely leaning into myself, especially like as we grow and we learn more about our history, our culture. So I'm leaning into that and putting like my parents on the map and putting my parents on the menu, putting my Jamaican heritage on the menu, and just really leaning into the discovery of self.
I like it. Now we'll go for the speed round. What is your favorite curse word? No, I'm joking. I'll tell you mine. What is your favorite Baldor ingredient to work with?
Baldor brand or just something I could get
From Baldor. From Baldor.
From Baldor.
Not Baldor brand. From any of the wonderful purveyors.
Oh, their Meyer lemons are great. They're always consistent. Sugar's good too.
All right, I'm going to go with sugar. I'm taking yours. We unfortunately use a lot of it in our space.
I just tasted a really great gelatin out there. I know that's...
Yeah, gelatin?
Yeah, it was incredible.
Was it powdered or...
Yeah, it was powdered gelatin made to like mimic the Haribo texture. It was...
Wow.
Great.
Interesting.
So there you go. And we're really deep.
Here.
They also sold glucose too, so you could just get all in one.
Yeah.
I don't know what my favorite, but the hardest ingredient to get is fig leaves.
Oh, yeah.
Fig leaf?
Fig leaves.
Oh, I've got fig trees.
Yeah, we don't live in West Coast.
They have pandan too, which is really good to get from Baldor.
Yeah.
All right. I think we'll open it up for a little Q&A session. So if you guys have any questions for our panelists, raise your hand. We have mics, or you can scream. I see one right there. Hold on, we're getting you a mic.
Yeah.
I can't hear anything.
Really good at
No.
not quite.
Sure.
Hi, much better.
Oh, there.
Thank you. Cass Bleeds with Proba Gourmet. We're a French flavor house specializing in vanilla, cocoa, caramel, and coffee. How do you plan to address the cocoa crisis in your pastry and dessert programs? In particular, I'm very interested in Tyler. It looks like about half of your flavors contain cocoa of some kind.
Just close our eyes. Hope it goes away. I don't know. We're so screwed.
I think it's I like to source ethically. So not only do I use like the direct to farmer method, but using I shouldn't say this, Natura. They have Femmes de la Chocolat. It is a Congo style chocolate where they go in, they teach the women how to farm chocolate, and they directly work with them, and they get more than 30% above the farmer share profits. So it's just, we're small enough to do that. I know Tyler probably couldn't implement that into, how many stores do you have now? 45?
Just 40. But no, I mean, we have like our bread and butter. We do monthly menus, so we've got 5 flavors that drop on the first Friday of every month. So we can kind of alter. We're not purposely changing our creative based off of these price changes, but we also know like we don't really care about budget for those 5 flavors, if that makes sense. So we care, but like at the same time, we're willing to break the bank, I guess. So it's kind of okay. We've got a whole chocolate menu coming out in February. Mostly work with small makers for that, and so that we might have to take a little bit of extra focus on that. Trying to dial in, like, do we use cocoa powder here, couverture, some of those, kind of balancing that out, but hopefully it doesn't impact our creative.
Yeah, these commodities, fluctuate. And I feel like every 7 years we kind of go into this cycle. And, as pastry chefs, I think in terms of ingenuity, it's looking at how you can stretch a product as well. What else you can use to complement it. We can never get away from chocolate. We can never get away from vanilla. We're pastry chefs. Yeah. But I feel like a lot of times I look at usage and how far I can stretch it, what other flavors I can bring in to kind of survive or take the hit. And know that for the most part, you are actually supporting the farmers. It is a crop. While it is a commodity, it is a crop. And much like everything else, we have bad seasons, we have bad regions, and they will recover. And we have to keep buying.
Yeah. One of my friends in Miami, she's got a chocolate company, and she just rolled out a line of toasted white chocolate, which is great. It's a great way to get around it, I suppose. So there's tricks.
Also, just always make sure that your companies are B Corporate rated as well when sourcing, if you can't go to the farm themselves.
We have 2 down here.
There one that goes to yes, sure, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Andrew. I'm nobody, but
You are somebody.
I just had a question, of course, for the panel. Currently, I'm working at a restaurant where the talks of getting rid of dessert altogether is seriously being implicated. The owners are arguing similar to what everyone has mentioned before. You can only train the front of the house to a certain extent. The battle of certain guests, they spend $150. Therefore, sure, let's sell them a dessert for $14. Let them stay an extra 30 minutes versus turning the table. So, like, basically everything that everyone has mentioned already. What's your advice to someone when the owners are asking for the opinions of the front of the house staff based off of what they want to do right now?
I'll take this one because I spent 20 years of my career fighting this. What I found is to make yourself as useful as possible. We talked before about what else can I do, whether it be pasta, pizza doughs, bread service, garnishes for the bar, drink mixes, bitters, etc. And while your staff or any staff might be cut down, we might have 3 desserts on the menu. you're still retaining that value of the pastry department and spreading it out throughout, because the value that you bring is more than just your dessert menu sales.
I also think as a business owner, there's so much value in your front of house, whether it be your waiters, your counter staff, who really hold more knowledge in the company than I do, because they're the ones who are at the front line, who actually know what the customers want. So for me, it's really important finding those key people that we trust, that I kind of create relationships with to really get feedback from. Because if you're finding that, 80% of your customers want to stay for dessert and say, hey, what's on the dessert menu? Ownership is not going to know that. And that's up, that's valuable information that you hold and that you have. But if they're getting up and they're leaving because there's a Salt and Straw next door and they're going out for ice cream and no one ever inquires about dessert, again, that's a great, opportunity for you to raise your hand and be like, yeah, maybe we could shift and put our efforts in something else. We could turn more tables. So I think really making sure as a restaurant owner, as an employee, that you have that great relationship, because you guys are like the gatekeepers and hold the most information and value to any business owner of what our customers want.
Hello. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and your experience. My name is Alina. I'm an executive chef of Red Chuck Rural Bakery. It's in Virginia, it's not in New York. And I recently transitioned there from 3-star Michelin Far Forbes hotel. And personally, I always struggled with the idea that pastries have to be cute, whimsical, look like nothing like food, whereas pork chop can look like a pork chop and broccoli can look like broccoli. How do you approach the fact that people eat with their eyes first when it comes to desserts, when we want to feature flavor and we want to feature complexity and textures and mouthfeel, and not only the appearance of the product?
Sure. I think it's different for every dish for me, to be honest with you. Sometimes I'm thinking about flavors first, and then I figure out which textures I need. I mean, basic ones are, like there's going to be an ice cream, there's going to be some creamy texture, there's going to be some crunch texture. I'm huge on texture, so I'm always thinking about, okay, like what am I putting? And then after I gather all the information that I want, and figure out a design of how I want to create it, like it's more like a chart to me, to be honest. It's an architect. You're constructing this, and then you figure out what works and what doesn't work. Which flavors can you make into the crumble part? What flavors can you make into a meringue or something else? What flavor can you make into a mousse, or what other flavor combinations are you really looking for? And make that into however beautiful you want to make it into.
I also think, to Elisa's point earlier about kind of the sense memory of dessert, right? It doesn't have to necessarily be cute or whimsical. A slice of cake is a slice of cake. People have a visceral reaction to a big chunk of chocolate cake. So let it be a slice of cake. Sometimes it's like, you know what? Don't play with your food. Just give me a piece of cake.
It's also what you guys were talking about earlier with nostalgia. I used to play a lot with nostalgia, like popcorns on desserts during summertime. People go to a fair or to movie theaters, and popcorn just really has a special place in everybody's heart, I feel like. Or other flavors, like butterscotch. I put a root beer float on the menu that was nothing like a normal root beer float, obviously. It had like Pop Rocks, it had some other like crazy stuff in it. But it's the fact that like people will order it because it's called a root beer float, even if it's not their usual root beer float, and like really playing with the nostalgia.
I think we have time for one more. Center aisle.
That's it.
Sure. We just throw the mics. They're rentals, right?
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay. Hi there. My name is Deanna. I'm from Sweet Mimi's Cafe and Bakery up in upstate New York. So if y'all come to Saratoga Springs for the horses, come see us. We are a breakfast brunch cafe, but we also have our own little quote unquote bakery in the front. And I'm one of the bakers. And so we focus a lot on nostalgia, when you talk about like, your carrot cakes, your scones, all of those things. And I heard you guys talk a lot about that, but also about melding these flavors. And I was just wondering if anyone had an idea for mixing sort of that nostalgia, like taking a carrot cake or taking a chocolate cake or vanilla cupcake and sort of not making it so over the top in the, fine dining pastry part of it, but just sort of elevating it and making it a little different and changing it up without getting rid of that nostalgia. Do you have any ideas for that?
I mean, specifically for like a carrot cake, mess with those flavors, mess with those textures. Like if you're going to add a nut to it, maybe it's not going to be like that traditional pecan or walnut. Maybe you might want to use a tiger nut. Maybe you might want to use a Brazilian nut, play with those like little plays on things. I always love to play on flours when I'm making bread, like sourcing ethically, sourcing locally. Main Grains does a great job, and it's on Baldor. There's my answer. And sugar. Playing with those, like, going outside of the normal wheelhouse of using the cinnamon and what else is in carrot cakes? Cinnamon and nutmeg. Use a little bit of black pepper. Use a little bit of, whatever. Have fun with it. Use bay leaf. Like all those things work. You just need to find what is going to work for not only you but your customers.
Yeah, I think it's what is the market going to bear, right? Like a tahini carrot cake, maybe not. Could you sneak in black pepper? Could you start just tweaking? I think spices are a great way to start, and maybe something familiar but unexpected, like the black pepper of the carrot cake, like something they know.
Yeah, and I think in doing so too, you'll find people are more curious to try things if you take kind of a classic to play with it. For example, we have a great scone, as you mentioned, and it's a blueberry with goat cheese and thyme. So it kind of intrigues the customer. We did a cookie a few seasons ago that was a classic sugar cookie, but it was a lime cilantro, and everyone wants to know what that tastes like, and it really encourages to buy that instead of the basic chocolate chip. So I think adding that little, even playing with different savory and sweet flavors and adding some savory elements into something that's unexpected, and creating the intrigue for, someone to buy something because it just, they're unfamiliar with that flavor combination and what it might taste like. But working with like a basic, easy, classic item instead of, going too crazy, keeping it scones, cookies, something that you're good at.
All right. Thank you guys so much for coming, and thanks to Baldor for having us. Enjoy the rest of the show.